In 1814 we took a little trip along with Colonel Jackson down the mighty Mississippi. We took a little bacon and we took a little beans, and we caught the bloody British in a town in New Orleans. We fired our guns and the British kept a-coming. There wasn't as many as there was a while ago. We fired once more and they began to run on down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. We looked down the river and we see the British come, and there must have been 100 of them beating on the drum. They stepped so high and they made the bugles ring. We stood beside our cotton bales and didn't say a thing. We fired our guns and the British kept a-coming. There wasn't as many as there was a while ago. We fired once more and they began to run on down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. Old Hickory said we could take them by surprise if we didn't fire muskets till we looked them in the eye. We held our fire till we seen their faces well, then we opened up our squirrel guns and really gave them well. We fired our guns and the British kept it coming. There wasn't as many as there was a while ago. We fired once more and they began to run on down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. Yeah, they ran through the briars and they ran through the brambles and they ran through the bushes where a rabbit couldn't go. They ran so fast that the hounds couldn't catch them on down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. We fired our cannon till the barrel melted down, so we grabbed an alligator and we fought another round. We filled his head with cannonballs and powdered his behind, and when we touched the powder off, the gator lost his mind. We fired our guns and the British kept a-coming. There wasn't as many as there was a while ago. We fired once more and they began to run on down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. Yeah, they ran through the briars and they ran through the brambles and they ran through the bushes where a rabbit couldn't go. They ran so fast that the hounds couldn't catch them on down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico.
The main element of Madison's presidency, as you see, we have the list just says Tecumseh and the Second War for Independence. Both of these revolve around the War of 1812. It is called the War of 1812. It lasts from 1812 to 1814. It started in 1812. Of course, this is a war between England and the United States. Hence the Second War for Independence, right? The United States, less than 30 years after the Constitution is ratified, is invaded by England. England's going to actually invade the capital, D.C., burn part of the capital, which apparently is why the White House is called the White House. They had to paint it white afterwards. This war is not going to go very well for the United States, but let me back up. Tecumseh is, so England still maintains control of Canada, right? They cede the Western Territory. There's some maps in the textbook, the Ohio River Valley and whatnot, but they still control Canada. England is going to basically control Canada, theoretically, technically, until after World War II. But the year cited by Canadians as their independence is 1867, which is when they're given basically what's called home rule, right? They're allowed to manage themselves day to day, but their foreign policy is connected to England. So when England declares war in the world wars of the 20th century, Canada is automatically at war. But England is still in Canada in 1812. England has the most powerful navy in the world. It has off and on been conducting what is called impressment of sailors. Basically, commandeering ships, taking civilian sailors and forcing them into the British Navy to work for the British Navy. Kidnapping, basically, right? They are also aligning themselves with this gentleman, a leader of the Shawnee tribe nation named Tecumseh, who is carrying out some what you might call border attacks, frontier assaults. Basically, I mean, to the white American settlers moving west, it is the frontier, but there are already people there, various Indian nations, the Shawnee being one of them. It's not necessarily the frontier or, to them. So, but basically engaging in some sort of alliance with England in order to check the expansionist tendencies of this new country, the United States, and also Tecumseh is trying to foster what is referred to as a pan-Indian alliance. This is referenced in Chapter 4 with Pontiac's rebellion in 1763. It might have been referenced in the Pueblo Revolt of the 17th century. I'm not sure. But basically, if you've paid attention so far, or maybe you had some knowledge coming into this class, we see the history of indigenous people in America as they are all here, they are all like hippies, they all get along, and then people show up from Europe who are all the same and kill all these Indian people, and they're gone. Right? This is not the case. Native Americans, Indian nations, see themselves as different. They're organized in different ways, economically, linguistically, spiritually, politically. Some of them find a better ally in France than with a neighboring tribe, or England. Right? They can distinguish between Spain, France, England, and then the United States later on. Right? They know that this is not one homogeneous or homogeneous group. And likewise, Europeans see, for the most part, and then Americans see different tribes that are organized around different, economies or whatever, and ways in which they can align with one tribe against, another. The French and Indian War is a good example. There are instances where, the French might be European, England might be European, but the French have a more symbiotic relationship in North America with Indian nations than they do with England. They fight a war with Indian allies against England, right? So there's much more diversity and it's much more heterogeneous than the collective narrative we have, right? However, there were moments where folks like Pontiac, and then in this instance Tecumseh, try to foster a pan-Indian alliance. This idea that, generally speaking, if you look at Chapter 1, Foner usually comes back to generalizations a lot. Generally speaking, there is an indigenous way of life. It is threatened generally by the encroachment of Europeans, white American settlers, etc. And so there should be some sort of alliance between Indian nations just to preserve that general way of life. But basically, the result of these attacks, which are being encouraged by England, the impressment of sailors, the trade embargo of the United States has, shifted off and on with England. It creates this conflict. England, and there ends up being this war. This war, militarily speaking, does not go well for the United States, right? It ends in 1814 with the Treaty of Ghent, G-H-E-N-T, the Treaty of Ghent, in which the United States does not cede any territory. It does not give up its independence, right? It does not become a colony once again of England. It maintains its sovereignty. However, and so that's a good thing from their perspective, and they become very patriotic and nationalistic after this. I'll get into that later. But from a military standpoint, this is not a war that goes very well for various reasons. One, the National Bank charter had expired in 1811. Madison is not a Federalist, is not a supporter of it necessarily. This bank charter expires. However, fighting a war, maintaining a military, it doesn't require, but you benefit from a central economic apparatus, a national bank, a robust federal government, right, to mobilize resources for war. This war is actually funded in many respects by private, wealthy Americans who loan money to the government. So yeah, there's the one really well known, other than obviously the invasion of Washington D.C. where there's an evacuation of the Capitol. Madison actually takes over and helps command an artillery unit, right, cannon and whatnot. But the most well-known battle from the War of 1812 is from the song that opened up this segment. The Battle of New Orleans, which was actually fought after the Treaty of Ghent was signed, so the war was already over. But it does catapult Andrew Jackson to national prominence, And as you can tell by the song, written in 1959 or so, you can see why that generation of young people ended up using lots of drugs in the 60s, because they were listening to stuff like that before.